Hello, everybody. Jonathan Pulley here with West Coast Weather. Today is December 3rd. Welcome to meteorological winter. It's crazy that we're already here. Fall went by so fast. We're currently looking at the satellite imagery off the west coast of the United States. You can see California with the fog socked in over the Sacramento Valley. They've been really getting a lot of fog lately as we've kind of had a big ridge of high pressure along and just off the coast. But we got multiple systems that are going to start arriving over the next rest of the week and making us return to active weather. It was a really boring November, to be honest, which much of you probably really liked. But for us weather forecasters, it was a snooze fest, to say the least. But yeah, we got multiple systems that are going to start riding over this ridge, and it's eventually going to break down this high pressure. And you can see the clockwise spin in the atmosphere as this moisture goes over the ridge of high pressure and down over the area. We got some showers and light rain over the region right now, and that's going to continue over the next couple days. And then we're going to get a stronger system on the day on Friday later in the afternoon into Saturday, which may bring some gusty winds to parts of the area during the king tides. And then we're going to take a look at the fantasy forecast in the second half of the video, so make sure to stay there as there's potential for some cold. I know I was talking about that a few weeks ago, but the models decided the trend towards this ridge being closer to us. So we'll just take a glance at that and see what the models are doing once we go over the next few days. So looking right here, here's North America. Washington, Oregon, and California are down here. You can see the big ridge of high pressure that's over and just off the coastline. You can see the day and time up here. I know it's a little bit small, but unfortunately I can't really make it much bigger than it is. So as we go through later today, you can see the ridge there's a little disturbance that moves down along the ridge into the British Columbia. That's going to be bringing us our precipitation today and over tomorrow as well. Then you can see the ridge really start to break down on Friday morning as that system comes in. And then the potential for it's kind of like a merge of two different systems. They're not very strong, but there's going to be a bit of a rather strong pressure gradient on the south side because of the proximity to this high pressure to the west. And then it looks like we got more systems as we go through the weekend, and then the potential for an atmospheric river as we go in the early next week. That some models are showing some really impressive rainfall totals. And then models start to disagree as we go into around the 8th or 9th of December. So as we go over and look closer at the west coast, here's 6-hour precipitation type in inches. So every time I click this is going to be 6 hours of precipitation, and you can see the pressure in millibars as well. So as we play this through, you can see the showers and light rain over parts of western Washington, southwest BC. Today, it looks like that lines up a bit this afternoon, and then that heavier precipitation starts moving in late tonight into Thursday morning. That continues on and off for pretty much the northern half of Oregon as all the way up in the southwest BC through Thursday afternoon. And then another round of precipitation as the stronger system. You can see the low pressure system 997 millibar low up near Haida. That starts moving and bringing another more showers and rain over the region all the day on Friday as well. There's going to be some breaks in the precipitation here and there, but they shouldn't be that huge of breaks for most areas. Then that system kind of weakens and moves in, but notice how there's this pressure gradient right along the coastline. This is going to allow some gusty, the locally strong westerly winds push into the area. And we'll look at the wind gusts here in a second. Then that breeziness continues in the Saturday as that pressure gradient continues, but then loosens as we go through the evening. Then another system comes in on the day on Sunday, and this is going to be the start of a bigger plume of moisture that looks to start moving in on Monday. And this might be a pretty sizable atmospheric river as we go on the day on Monday and the Tuesday, and that might continue all the way through parts of next week. Look at that. The precipitation is continuing over the mountains and other parts of the area all the way through like Thursday. That would be like 3 to 4 days of on and off atmospheric river activity. This could bring a flooding threat. As you notice, there's not a lot of snow happening in the mountains. It's only happening in the very highest terrain, and that's because these atmospheric rivers bring up warm subtropical moisture up from the south, and that raises the snowfall levels to above the passes and stuff. So there would be some snow accumulations in the higher terrain, but unfortunately, a lot of it would be rainfall. So that could bring some pretty sizable totals. And let's actually look at the totals that the European model shows all the way through Monday. Notice that, yeah, some of these tolls are approaching almost 10 inches in some of the mountains, and you see up towards almost 3 inches for Seattle. Even Whidbey Island's getting in on, like, there's not even much of a rain shower. That's over 2 inches of rainfall for almost all of Western Washington, Southwest BC, and Western Oregon as well. Medford kind of being on the southern edge of that precipitation shield. And as just malls start to disagree a bit after that. But look at this. We're starting to approach by the end of next week. Some malls are starting to show almost a 1.5 foot precipitation for parts of the Cascades, and potential for more even after that. So definitely going to need to watch that, because rivers are typically at the end of November, early December, running a rather high. Thankfully, we didn't get like a ton of rainfall in November, so this atmospheric river shouldn't be like super impactful. So let's look at 10-meter wind gusts over the next few days. You can see just kind of breezy winds for some areas as we go through Thursday with that first system. And then the stronger system starts to make headway on Friday afternoon, bring some gusty winds to parts of the area, probably only gusting maybe 25 to 35 miles per hour for the strongest parts of the area. Maybe some 40s up near like northern Whidbey Island, Fidalgo, and along the straight one, the Fuca. Then you can see the backside of the front of the low pressure system starting to move in on later on Friday evening, bringing some stronger winds to parts of the coastline. Nothing out of the ordinary out there, though. Some gusts 45, maybe even approaching 50 miles per hour. Then a westerly surge of wind looks to come down the strait late Friday night in the Saturday morning for parts of Whidbey Island along the straight one, Fuca, basically from Port Angeles, the Whidbey Island up the Fidalgo, and southern parts of the San Juans, maybe even reaching all the way out to Arlington. However, weaker winds as you go way far east. But we could get some gusts up towards 50 miles per hour with this. However, there's a couple models that are showing even potential for stronger winds than that, as there is a bit of disagreement on how fast that low pressure system weakens as it comes in. If it remains a little bit stronger, we could see some increased winds up maybe towards 55, 60 miles per hour. And one of these models is the RDPS. It's a higher resolution Canadian weather model. And sometimes this one tends to sniff out these westerly winds a bit better than other models. And notice this, it brings a 60 mile per hour westerly surge of wind down the straight one, the Fuca, on Friday afternoon, about 12 hours earlier than the European model has, and has it weakening by all the way by Saturday morning. It has the low pressure system coming in a bit stronger and earlier in the day on Friday. So that's maybe give, let's say, a 10 to 20% chance of something like that happening. But just keep your eyes out for the potential for stronger winds Friday afternoon and the Saturday morning. And I'll make sure to do another video before then if models are really locking in on the stronger wind potential. But generally, gusts up towards 50 miles per hour with the strongest generally expected Saturday morning or really early Saturday morning before sunrise. And with the king tides happening Saturday morning, that could cause some water over roadways for places like West Beach and stuff if the winds are still going strong during high tide on Saturday morning. So always make sure to watch out for that. There's also going to be probably some pretty big wave action along the coast, the Washington coast, as there's going to be some swell with this system coming in added on top of the king tides that are going to be happening around noon, like in places like Westport. So there's going to be probably some really good wave watching action down there. Make sure that just don't turn your back to the water if you're out there near the jetties and stuff as well. So now let's take a look at the longer range model. So this is looking at the European model ensemble mean. That's basically just means it's taking 50 different European models that are all tweaked a little bit differently, just to kind of give us an accurate like picture of how much disagreement there is in the models. And then it kind of gives us just a basic picture of what the general pattern is going to look like. So as we go in the next week, you notice how this is you can see why we're going to be probably getting an atmospheric river and a potential significant one next week. You can see that ridge of high pressure to our south and that trough of low pressure to our north. That kind of puts us on this boundary where it just flows moisture right into Washington and Southwest BC. And that looks kind of to continue all the way through Wednesday and potentially into Thursday. But then I want to show you what happens after that as we go into next weekend, the weekend after this one. Notice how this trough kind of like moves right over us in British Columbia with this high pressure over Alaska. This is kind of what I was showing you a few weeks ago, earlier in November. and models kind of didn't turn out that way. The trough ended up going a lot farther to the east, which caused the high pressure ridge to be a lot closer to us. However, models this time are showing that ridge quite a bit farther back. So even if it starts trending east, it's going to need to trend a lot more east than last time for us to have the same boring pattern come to fruition. So as we play this out, as we go into the weekend after next, notice this is a pretty solid setup for colder air to start filtering out of the north, because that high pressure ridge goes all the way into the Arctic. And what that does is that causes the jet stream to go way up into the Arctic and then come down over us. And that basically creates a path for that Arctic air to flow out over the Yukon and British Columbia as well. And the European model this morning is actually uptrended that a bit, and it even continues that potential for some cooler air all the way through the middle of December. So definitely going to be interesting to watch. And I want to show you here the 850 millibar temperature anomaly. So this is about 5,000 feet in the atmosphere. It gives us a good idea to see how cold the air mass is above the surface is as it comes down. So even as we're getting that atmospheric river, you notice how we're getting that warm subtropical air over almost the entire western United States. But however, look at this pink and purple that's sitting up there in the Yukon from basically Alaska down to northern Alberta, Canada. And that's just kind of sitting up there. And then as that trough starts moving down, notice how that cold air starts creeping down. Not quite over us yet, but the first step to get cold air and Arctic air and snow chances around here is to at least get a big pool of cold air to sit over central and northern BC. And then eventually we can start to try to get some weather systems down over us that would help pull and drag the air even farther south and bringing it over us here in the Pacific Northwest. So this is just an early look at things. Obviously, this cannon will change as it did in November, but this one seems to be a little bit more strong of a signal in the models compared to last time, and it would take a lot larger shift in the models to move that all east. So just something fun to watch as we go over the next week or so and see if that trend keeps going. Even longer range models are keeping the potential for cooler air around all the way in the early January. So there's potential for reinforcements of cold air. So I think we'll get hit by something eventually this winter. I don't know if it's going to be this month or it's going to be next month or even February, as lots of things can change. And obviously we saw that in November with the boring pattern that replaced what we were thinking was going to be a lot chillier, with even potential for snow chances around Thanksgiving. So anyways, thank you everybody for watching and sticking around for this video. Please just hit the like button, subscribe buttons down below this video. It helps the YouTube algorithm to kind of show this page out to more people and helps me out as well. So I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day, and I'll talk to everybody in the next forecast video.